If you've ever felt judged for your accent, or if a colleague's smug smile made you shrink inside, listen up. You're about to see the exact moment a powerful, arrogant BBC anchor learned that underestimating a Filipino is the biggest mistake you can make on live TV. This isn't just about an embarrassing interview, it's about the truth. Your confidence is being silently stolen every time you apologize for your English. We're showing you how this reporter tried to mock a Filipino linguist and ended up getting absolutely destroyed, his career on the line, his authority vaporized. Don't let yourself be the next one schooled or silenced. The global Filipino community is uniting to reclaim our voice and power, and you need to be in the room. Scroll down and smash that join button right now or get left behind when the world finally respects us. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments, and I will give you a heart. The lights were set to a perfect corporate blue. The stage was the hallowed ground of the BBC, the undisputed global standard bearer for information and, more importantly, for authority. If your English didn't pass the BBC test, you failed the world's test. And right there, millions of eyeballs from London to Manila, from Vancouver to Dubai, were fixed on a split screen. On one side, Oliver Grant, tall, immaculately suited, hair perfect, and radiating the kind of effortless, inherited confidence that screams, I am the standard. He represented every moment you've been condescended to, every time you've been dismissed in a job interview simply because you didn't sound right. He was the gatekeeper. On the other, Maria Santos, young, sharp, and connected via a jittery Manila feed, she was there to talk about the evolution of English in Southeast Asia. She was ready for an academic debate. She was not ready for an ambush. Oliver began with the typical polished introduction listing her credentials. Joining us today from Manila is Maria Santos, a linguist who studies the way English has evolved in Southeast Asia. He flashed a polite smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. Good morning, Maria. Maria, poised and professional, replied instantly, Good morning, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. And that's when it happened. That's the exact moment the ambush was sprung. As soon as her voice, with its clear, precise, but distinctly Filipino rhythm, finished her sentence, Oliver did it. He didn't interrupt, he didn't frown, he simply raised an eyebrow and let a small, predatory smirk flicker across his lips, a gesture that in one devastating second told the world everything he thought about her English, and about her entire country. It was subtle, it was toxic, and it was live. Oliver leaned slightly toward the camera, his voice softening just enough to imply a patronizing intimacy. I must say, Maria, he said, drawing out the first syllable of her name in a way that sounded more like an appraisal than an address. Your English is quite interesting. Stop right there. When someone in authority uses interesting as a substitute for good, they are effectively telling you your effort is cute, but your delivery is flawed. If you are a Filipino professional, you have been on the receiving end of that interesting smile 1,000 times, in the boardroom, at the university, during immigration interviews. Every time you hear it, it's a dagger that punctures your confidence, forcing you to doubt the intelligence behind your words. It makes you second guess your grammar, your pronunciation, and even your thoughts. It makes you apologize for simply existing outside their narrow, established box of correctness. The live studio audience, trained to read every cue from the host, chuckled softly. It was a soft, cruel confirmation. Yes, she sounds funny. Maria, however, did not flinch. She was subjected to a public, humiliating critique, yet she held her composure. This is the difference between being prepared and being powerful. Thank you, sir, she said, her voice completely steady, refusing to allow the shame to attach itself. I studied English since I was a child. It's one of our national languages. Oliver leaned back dramatically, adopting the posture of a benevolent teacher listening to a student recite a fascinating but ultimately irrelevant fact. Oh yes, I've heard that, but tell me, do Filipinos speak English every day? I mean, real English, or just the Filipino version of it? The word real hung in the air like poison gas. If you are watching this right now, how many times has that same word, real, been used to define your career limits? If you are a nurse, are you a real nurse if your accent is thick? If you are a developer, are you coding in real English? Oliver wasn't asking about language. He was questioning Maria's legitimacy. He was implying that the English spoken by over 100 million Filipinos, used to run universities, government, and billion-dollar BPOs, was nothing more than an amateur imitation, a charming local novelty that shouldn't be taken seriously. In the control room, the producers saw the red light flashing. They knew the tone was crossing a line. It was disrespectful, bordering on racist, but they were locked in. They couldn't cut a live, high-profile interview. The shame, the disrespect, the utter arrogance of the British elite was now broadcasting to the world, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. They were frozen in panic. But Maria didn't freeze. She stared directly down the lens and refused the role of the passive victim. She understood that Oliver's question was not a genuine query. It was a trap designed to force her to apologize for her own identity. Well, she said, her calm tone a powerful contrast to Oliver's rising aggression. English in the Philippines is not just a version, it's part of who we are. She continued, delivering facts that should have been self-evident but needed to be stated because of the interviewer's willful ignorance. In fact, many Filipinos learn English before they even start school. We use it in universities, in government, in business, and in daily life. You could say we live in English and Filipino at the same time. Oliver, sensing he was losing the thread and the audience was not laughing as hard as he expected, doubled down on the condescension. He tried to reclaim the ground with dismissive sarcasm. He chuckled again, a tight, superior sound. That's cute. But surely it's not the same as native English, is it? I mean, your pronunciation, your expressions, they're different. He dragged the word different out again, making it sound exactly like wrong. He was telling Maria and every Filipino watching that your best is simply inadequate. Your difference is your deficiency. This is the moment that could break someone. This is the moment where years of silent insecurity, the self-admitting, the fear of public speaking, the quiet acceptance of lower pay than your English-speaking peers rises up and paralyzes you. Oliver was using the BBC's platform to validate every toxic stereotype that has ever held a Filipino professional back. But Maria Santos didn't lose her smile. She was about to turn the question around, taking Oliver's own weapon of standards and pointing it straight back at him. She was about to expose the hypocrisy of the entire BBC's self-appointed authority, not with anger, but with pure, devastating brilliance. If you don't learn how Maria Santos defended her ground here, you will remain vulnerable to every Oliver Grant waiting to dismiss your achievements with a smug smile. You will continue to let others define the value of your voice. Don't miss the second part. Don't let yourself be the one who gets silenced. Join our community right now. We are building the knowledge to ensure this never happens to you. Oliver Grant's condescending chuckle, that tight, superior sound, had barely faded when Maria Santos initiated her devastating counterattack. He had just declared her English different, a synonym for wrong, and expected her to crumble, or at least apologize. Instead, Maria maintained her radiant, disarming smile. It wasn't a smile of defeat, it was the calm, controlled, utterly brilliant smile of someone who knows they hold the winning hand. She wasn't going to fight him on his terms. She was going to dismantle his entire framework of authority. "May I ask, sir," she began, her voice still measured, refusing the panic the situation demanded, "what you mean by real English?" Oliver scoffed, already framing his predictable smug reply. He was about to lecture her on received pronunciation and the British Empire's legacy, but Maria didn't give him the chance to regain control. She launched her first precise missile. "Because from where I stand," she continued, her gaze unwavering, "there isn't just one English. There's British English, American English, Australian English, Indian English, even Nigerian English. Wouldn't you agree?" The studio went quiet. You could feel the air pressure drop. Oliver, whose entire persona was built on defining what was standard, was suddenly cornered by the very concept he profited from: diversity. Think about your own life. Every time you've accepted a pay cut, every time you've been passed over for a promotion, every time you've stayed silent in a meeting, it was because you internalized the myth of one true standard. Maria just exposed that myth as a toxic lie. She showed you that your unique voice, your different English, is not a flaw, it's a classification equal to all others. If you don't internalize this confidence, you will continue to let others define the ceiling of your potential. Oliver, a professional debater accustomed to ruling his domain, cleared his throat, buying time. He sputtered the official line, "Well, yes, but the BBC uses the standard form." Maria delivered the final, fatal blow of her opening volley, still smiling. And who decided what standard? Was it the British Empire? The audience gasped. That question, simple, direct, and historically undeniable, stripped away all of Oliver's academic pretense and exposed his superiority for what it was, an artifact of colonialism. The producers were now hyperventilating. Maria hadn't just changed the subject, she had changed the entire context of the conversation, shifting the frame from Maria's accent is deficient to Oliver's arrogance is colonial. Oliver tried to laugh it off. The pathetic forced laughter of a man realizing his expensive suit can't protect him from intellectual exposure. You're quite bold, Maria. I'm just being honest, she replied, refusing to be labeled bold, a synonym for insubordinate. She then pivoted, offering him a lifeline while simultaneously deepening her argument. She showed him how language should work, contrasting his rigid, dead view with her dynamic, living one. The funny thing about language is that it evolves, she explained. The same way British English borrowed words from French, Latin, and even Hindi, Filipino English has evolved to fit our culture and reality. It doesn't make it less valid, it just makes it ours. This is the power of owning your narrative. When someone mocks your heritage, don't apologize. Explain the brilliance of its evolution. When you realize this fundamental truth, the shame you carry for your accent will vanish. It will be replaced by a profound, unshakable confidence that allows you to demand respect in every room, whether you're talking to a CEO or a customs agent. If you don't take this lesson, you will continue to allow your identity to be weaponized against your ambition. Oliver, frantic now, tried one last desperate appeal to tradition, invoking the ultimate symbol of British linguistic authority. But you do agree that the Queen's English is the gold standard of proper English. Maria's response was not only linguistically correct, but devastatingly current. She used his own audience against him. Actually, Maria said coolly, many young British people don't even speak like the Queen anymore. In fact, most of your viewers probably don't use that kind of English at all. The audience, suddenly realizing they were being defended against their own host, erupted in genuine relieved laughter. Oliver's face tightened. He forced a smile. A ghastly, fake mask of professional acceptance. Good point, he said. The words strained, the authority draining from his voice like water from a cracked vessel. Maria smelled the victory, but she didn't gloat. She offered the final, most beautiful defense of Filipino English, its accessibility. In the Philippines, she concluded, English isn't just for academics. Taxi drivers, street vendors, and farmers can all speak it in their own way. That's the beauty of it. It connects people from all walks of life. We may pronounce things differently, but we understand each other perfectly. Isn't that what language is for? The mic drop was silent, but its effect was deafening. The chat section of the BBC livestream exploded. Viewers from across the globe, India, Africa, the Caribbean, and even London, started flooding the feed. They weren't debating language anymore. They were praising Maria's calmness, wit, and intellect. Filipino pride was trending because a woman who refused to be bullied had finally articulated the silent frustration of non-native English speakers everywhere. Oliver Grant, the man who started the segment as the embodiment of British linguistic superiority, was now visibly flustered, shuffling his notes, his composure shattered. He had tried to mock a single Filipino guest, and in doing so he had accidentally started a global movement for linguistic emancipation. You make it sound like English is no longer owned by the English, he mumbled, defeated. It's not, Maria finished. It never was. It belongs to everyone who uses it to express themselves. The lesson is brutally clear. When you refuse to play the victim, when you use truth and grace to expose arrogance, you don't just win a debate, you change the rules for everyone. If you watch this moment and fail to adopt Maria's intellectual ferocity, you risk being permanently sidelined by people like Oliver. You risk being dismissed as cute and different instead of being recognized as brilliant. Don't let that happen. Join the community now to learn the specific, actionable strategies Maria used to achieve this instantaneous global victory. Your silence is their power. Your knowledge is your defense. The instant Maria Santos delivered her final defiant truth that English belongs to everyone who uses it, the broadcast cut to a commercial break. But the damage was already done. The humiliation of Oliver Grant and the triumphant brilliance of Maria were no longer contained by the walls of the BBC studio. The segment went instantly viral, proving that a single moment of authentic resistance carries more weight than decades of broadcast authority. Think about the countless times you've left a meeting or conversation feeling cheated, wishing you had the perfect comeback. Maria provided that perfect comeback for an entire generation. This moment didn't just win a debate, it redefined the power dynamic for every non-native English speaker. And if you don't internalize its lessons, you risk remaining permanently undervalued. Within hours, clips of the interview, often captioned Filipino pride or the reporter who got schooled, were exploding across TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Millions of people weren't just watching, they were actively sharing. Viewers from India, Nigeria, and the Caribbean, communities that had long dealt with linguistic snobbery, praised Maria for defending the simple yet profound idea that English is a bridge, not a wall. The backlash against Oliver Grant was swift and brutal. His polished, arrogant persona, which had previously served him so well, became his greatest liability. He was subjected to the public shaming he had tried to inflict on Maria. Meanwhile, Maria's composure, intelligence, and grace turned her into an overnight international sensation. The most shocking part was the BBC's institutional response. In a rare and telling move, the BBC's official Twitter account posted a carefully worded but unmistakable concession. We celebrate diversity in language. Today's conversation with Maria Santos reminds us that English belongs to all who speak it. The network, the ultimate arbiter of the standard, was forced to bow to public opinion and acknowledge its own cultural bias. The real vindication came the very next day. Oliver Grant, looking humbled, tired, and visibly shaken, issued a public apology on air. "I've learned something valuable," he admitted, his voice stripped of its former swagger. "I was wrong to underestimate how beautifully Filipinos use it." His apology went viral almost as fast as the original clip. If you are a professional, you need to understand the strategic brilliance of Maria's win. She achieved what years of diplomatic lobbying couldn't. She forced a retraction of colonial arrogance through the sheer power of intellectual argument. She proved that when you are factually correct and articulate your position with humility, arrogance cannot survive. If you carry the confidence of knowing your worth, you can force even the most powerful authority to publicly apologize for underestimating you. Maria's career transformed overnight. She was no longer just a guest, she was a global commentator and a symbol of linguistic decolonization. Universities, eager to capitalize on her viral influence, invited her to speak about linguistic diversity. She became the voice for millions who had been silenced, receiving messages of thanks from every corner of the non-Western world. A few weeks later, Maria was invited back to the BBC. This time, the dynamic was completely different. Oliver greeted her with genuine respect, calling her presence an honor. The conversation wasn't about critique, it was about understanding, growth, and equality. Oliver openly confessed on air that he had watched their previous exchange multiple times, realizing that Maria hadn't just defended Filipino English, but had reminded him what communication is truly about: connection. Maria's final powerful words on that return broadcast solidified her legacy. Language isn't about who sounds more proper, it's about who makes people feel understood. And Filipinos have mastered that. The applause this time was not for entertainment, but for a profound, universally acknowledged lesson in human dignity. Back home in the Philippines, the effect was transformative. Teachers showed the replay in classrooms, urging students, "This is how you stand your ground with humility and intelligence." Young Filipinos who had grown up self-conscious about their accent suddenly felt an empowering surge of Filipino pride. They understood that their unique way of speaking English was not a mark of deficiency, but a mark of their global reach and adaptability. That distinctive Filipino accent was now a badge of honor. Maria's story culminated in a globally televised TED Talk titled "The English That Belongs to Everyone." She began by revisiting the moment of her mocking, telling the packed hall, "That day I learned that being mocked can be an opportunity if you respond with truth and grace." She smiled warmly, looking directly at Oliver Grant, who was sitting in the front row. Maybe that's what being Filipino is all about. We don't fight with anger, we fight with brilliance and kindness. Oliver, the former antagonist, was the first to give her a standing ovation. This story is more than just a viral clip, it's a blueprint for dismantling systemic bias. It teaches you that knowledge spoken with confidence and humility can silence arrogance faster than any angry outburst. If you continue to let external criticism define your capabilities, you are sacrificing your personal and financial advancement. Maria's victory proves that your unique voice is your greatest asset, but only if you have the strategic brilliance to defend it. The entire world learned that day that you don't need a British accent to speak English with intelligence. You need confidence, respect, and a voice that speaks truth. Because in the end, language belongs to the many who keep it alive. Don't let this powerful lesson fade into history. The confidence and strategic brilliance Maria displayed are skills you need to master. By joining our community, you gain direct access to the strategies and mindsets that will help you achieve your own unapologetic success in a world that is always looking for a reason to doubt you. Join now, or remain vulnerable to the next Oliver Grant you meet.